This video comes from Fancy Scientist podcast 122, which is all about internships in wildlife fields. So, for understanding internships completely, make sure you listen to that podcast episode. What is an internship and how does it differ from other temporary jobs or volunteering? Internships are different because there is a different intention and purpose part of this work arrangement. And the biggest difference is that internships are meant to include more professional development. Now, this doesn't always happen. You can get internships that are not that great, but in reality, your employer should be more of a mentor to you. They should be guiding you more in your career process, in your trajectory. It's not just paid work. So that is one of the biggest differences. And then the other big difference is that it's temporary. But in wildlife fields like ecology, zoology, etc., a lot of jobs when you're starting out are temporary. So this aspect of the internship is not too unique. Quite often in wildlife fields, people work field assistant positions where they are working for, let's say, several months over the summer. So this on the surface might not appear that different from an internship. But like I said, from the employer standpoint, you are supposed to provide more mentoring, more career development, more professional assistance. For example, when I worked at the North Carolina Museum of Natural Sciences, one of the things that we would do for our summer interns is provide a science communication series. We created essentially this series of informational sessions and also interactive sessions as well, where they learned how to communicate science professionally to a public audience from all different people at the museum. Of course, it was us museum scientists, but we also incorporated other people from different positions within the museum that were not scientists. So these included communications professionals. They had classes in YouTube, Twitter, public speaking, things like that, for example. Whereas if I was hiring somebody for the summer to do field work for me, say I am running a bird project and I need somebody to help me conduct point counts, I wouldn't have to build in professional trainings. Later on, I'm going to discuss if that always happens, but that is the theory behind an internship. That is the concept, and that is how it differs. I get the impression from a lot of people that internships are really coveted or desired. A lot of people think that you need internships to succeed. They're not just focused on getting experience, they're focused on getting specifically an internship. They think that an internship will get them ahead. Why I think this is because going back to the concept of an internship, I think that people think that internships are more like hand-holding or shadowing. It's like when I imagined what graduate school would be like. I knew that I would have my own research project and be conducting my own research and data analysis and doing things on my own. But I also had this vision of almost like an apprenticeship where I would be working in the lab alongside my advisor and kind of like watching her do things, learning from her, doing things. But in reality, this is not what it was like at all. And this can happen with your internship as well. You might be under a program that is by internship name only, but in reality, your tasks might not differ that much from a regular field position. And this would also happen with us at the North Carolina Museum of Natural Sciences. And this would also happen both in the jobs that I worked in and in positions that I hired for with interns. Sometimes the jobs were essentially the same. The duties were the same. Like I mentioned before, if it was an internship, I really did go out of my way to include more professional mentoring. But you can also get professional mentoring just depending on who your employer is. If it's somebody who really cares about professional development, who really cares about you as a person and seeing your success, it doesn't matter if it's an internship or not. And make sure to check out podcast number 89 with Scott Putnam. He was an excellent mentor. He's a recently retired fisheries biologist at Idaho Fish and Game. And he really cared about his students, whether they were doing an internship or whether they were working with him or even volunteering with him. So you can get similar experiences, whether it is an official internship or not. On the flip side of that, you can also get bad experiences with internships. Just because somebody calls it an internship doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get that professional development. It really depends on who you're working for. One of the things that I want you to do is get rid of the concept that you have to have an internship. You don't have to have an internship for success. What is really important is the experience that you get. So more on that later. I think people get that impression just from the word internship and not necessarily our field. For instance, let me read this statement from a PBS article. It says that according to the National Association of Colleges and Employers, more than half of internships lead to full-time jobs, and people with internship experience received more job offers and higher starting salaries than those without it. That may happen in other fields, but it doesn't necessarily happen in our field. Now, there are key points in that statement that I'm going to discuss later on, but it's not necessarily the result of an internship. You don't need that word internship. It's the stuff within the internship that is important, and we will get into that. Before we move on, I also want to say that an internship often is not reflective of what you are going to be doing later on in your career. I think a lot of people think that it provides this glimpse of what it's like to be a wildlife biologist. And there are some aspects of truth to that. For example, when I worked at Disney's Animal Kingdom, I was an intern in the lab there. We were conducting hormone assays, studying the captive wildlife, studying the captive wildlife there for management and also for their reproductive success. And then I also worked alongside the wildlife biologist there who was studying animals on undeveloped Disneyland. I got to go with her and conduct alligator surveys and bird surveys and things like that. So I did get a taste of what it's like to be a wildlife biologist, but I didn't see the other aspects of her job, which included being in the office, writing reports, conducting data analysis, all of that stuff. And I'm sure at the time we talked about it, but I didn't really fully understand it. So with your internship, it's important to understand that you're doing tasks that are entry level, and these are not necessarily going to be the things, or probably they're not likely going to be the things that you're going to be doing later on in a permanent position. This is why understanding what you want to do is key. And I have 2 resources linked below that will help you do that. The first is make sure you come to the Becoming a Wildlife Professional trainings that I do. These are free. I do them every couple of months. I do them live on Zoom. Just enroll, sign up at the link, and you will get the email alerts when the next free training is. And we go over the 3 pillars to becoming a successful wildlife professional. These are essential. If you do these things, you can't not get a job, honestly. I've never seen it not work when people do these 3. When people do these 3 things. The other thing is you really want to understand the job that you want. This is part of the 3 pillars, but I have a free resource for you, the job tracker. And when you use the job tracker, you are going to start tracking the jobs that you're interested in and really starting to understand them, to nitpick them apart, to understand the nuances, and the details within the jobs and what they entail so that you make sure that you are setting yourself up for success. To cover the major points, internships are different from other experiences but you definitely don't need an internship to set you up for success. What we really need is experience, and we'll go into the details of why experience is so important. I'm not going to say don't go after internships. Internships are great opportunities to build experience. But if you're not finding internships, although we will go over how to find them, if you're not finding internships or you're not getting them, I'll also help you with that. Then you want to focus on just getting experience. Don't get so narrowed in on having to have an internship to be successful. You do not need it. You need experience. In the next video, we are going to talk about how to find internships and how to get internships.